call the Government Services meeting to order. Because this is a recording and we are using this video format, I'm just going to call out who is on this committee. So it's myself. We have Vice Chair Scott Meyer. We have absent today is Nick Dembski as the secretary. We have Supervisor John Wish, Supervisor Fabi Maldonado, and Supervisor Steve Montana. And joining us for the first time this evening is newly appointed Supervisor Kelly Cruz. So welcome, Kelly, to Government Services. And know if you have any questions, just stop us, and we're all here to help you. So
yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this. So I've read everything that I need to, I hope, and if there's anything else I need to for future, just let me know, but I'm happy to be here. Okay. All
right, perfect. Thank you. Welcome again. All right, the first thing we have on the agenda is public comment. MT, I'm not seeing anyone, so if we can just confirm. Okay, great. So I'm just going to ask Willow to, if you wouldn't mind, to read the Youth and Governance Statement, please.
No problem. We are members of the Racine County Youth and Governance Program, and we will be participating in tonight's meeting. This program serves to empower youth in Racine County by encouraging us to participate in local government. We have agreed to abide by the applicable standards of conduct that would govern any elected county board member. While we are encouraged to participate and are allowed to have a non-binding advisory vote on matters before the committee, all formal action taken by this committee will be based solely on the binding votes made by county board supervisors.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much, Willow. We also, and I apologize, Kelly, as Willow stated, she is one of our youth and governance representatives, and we also have Sophia, who is in our attendee list, but not on video. So thank you. So what we have, I have no comments, so we're just going to move past the chairman's comments and just go on to the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Do we have a motion for that?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. All right, I believe that was Supervisor Montana with the motion and Supervisor Meyer for the second. Do we have any comments? All right, those all in favor, please say aye or raise the hand. I have you all on grid. All right, thank you. And I see Willow, you raised two. How do you wish to vote, Sophia?
I approve as well.
Perfect, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And the next thing on the agenda is we have Pam before us to give us a youth and governance update. So if you could please do so.
Thank you, Chairwoman Caprillion. And good evening, everyone. I'm happy to see all of you again this month and to give you an update. Last time we met, nominations were in. We have 65 nominations, and out of the 65 youth that were nominated, 37 applied. So this is my third year conducting the whole nomination application process. This is the highest return rate. So that's a 57% return rate. So considering there's a pandemic, it's very exciting that we had that high of a return rate, and 11 different schools are represented through the applicants. So lovely, lovely. I'm happy to have that. They had until last Thursday, so the 14th, to postmark their application. So there still is a chance that we could get a couple trickling in. I'd say either tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. You know, usually doesn't take a full week, but you just never know, as we know that over the holidays things were a little bit slower. But since the holidays are over, hopefully we'll have everything that we need in the next day or two, because I know we already had some more that came in yesterday and today. So the timeline moving forward is this. Now the Government Service Committee will screen all those applications, so all 37 applications. And what I'll do is I'll share, since we do have some new members, what that looks like. Just so when you get it, and I'll also share with you that I will in my email explain all of this. So it's not something that you have to remember. So via email, because in the past I could also give you hard copies, but as we know, we won't be able to do that this year. So by the end of this week, you will receive this application screening form, and there's 2 of these screeners on each form. You will rate questions, as you can see, 1, 3, 4, and 6. And the questions are right there on the screening form as well. And you will rate each question as 1 or poor, 2 fair, 3 good, or 4 excellent. And then there's just an overall rating as well of, can this youth express their self clearly? And then you go ahead and you add up all the points. So the most points, or the highest score any applicant could have, is 20. The lowest score any applicant could have is 5. And then there's also an area for you to write your comments. In the past, and the question is still on the application, re-rated if a youth knew who their supervisor was. But we decided last year that that's part of the learning process, and that a youth may not know, and it is kind of difficult to find it as well. So that's why we dropped that question. So for those of you who've been on the committee longer, you may think, oh, where'd that question go again? So I just wanted to remind you of that. So this is step 1. And then you will fill out an overall rating form, which I'll see if I can bring that up. And by the time, can you see, I just want to make sure that you're seeing it. Does it say Youth and Governance Selection 2021 at the top? It's like a grid. Perfect. I will actually pre-populate all the names, so you will not have to write any of the names. And all I ask is that you put in the youth score and you email it back to me. I also ask that prior screener that you send back to me as well. You can email it back. I'll send them in Word form, or in this case, Excel form for this particular form, so it'll be easy to fill in and send back. Or I know in the past, some of you decided to print it and to scan them. Some of you faxed them, and sometimes even sent a picture just through your phone. So whatever you feel most comfortable with. Your deadline for this, though, is to send have all the applications screened by Monday, February 1st. That gives you this upcoming weekend, a full week, and a second weekend. That being said, if you think you'd want a couple extra days, we could have them due as late as February 3rd. So if I could just get a consensus from the committee, if you don't mind, if you're okay with February 1st, or if we should extend that to February 3rd.
I think February 1st would be just fine. So,
Okay.
and if anyone's having issues, they can just contact you.
Okay, so that, and I'll remind everyone in the email. So we will keep that then the 1st. Thank you. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, for some of the youth, they had some issues, for lack of a better word, with the PDF. It was a fillable PDF, and for some of it, it got cut off. And so their answer got cut off. And if you are in the form, you can scroll and read it yourself. So you can do that. However, what I decided to do is to write the rest of it on there so that you wouldn't have to do all that scrolling. So I just want you to know, if you see ones that are typed, but then also handwritten, that's what happened. And I just don't want that to be held against any youth that, oh, wait a minute, why is there both types? So, we have printing and then we have my writing. So please know that, and so that isn't held against them. And again, I'll explain that in the email as well. So just wanted to share that with you. So after we take a look and we screen all of them, then the decision will be, and we'll actually make that decision tonight. We always have in the past. In the past, we've brought back everyone but one person who had a really low screener score because we had fewer than 24 youth apply. We have 24 slots on the first day. So the next thing that I need the committee to decide is the following options for interviews. We have interviews on February 24th, that Wednesday, regardless. We have 24 slots. If we decide to bring back all 37 youth, then we definitely have to do the 2 days. So we also have to do some interviews on March 2nd, which is the following Tuesday. Another thought is to just make it an extra long day and add times, but that of course will make it probably more, oh, I should add, our first interview is at 5:30, our last interview is at 8. So you figure we're going from 5:30 to 8:30 by the time we're done, and then we wrap up and make the decision. Granted, that would be a little bit different on the first day if we do 2 days, and we come back on the second day. probably from about 5:30 to maybe 7:30 by the time we're done with the interviews. Another option is, like I said, we can go an extra long day and do interviews more like from 5 to 8:30. We can also add slots. Instead of interviewing 4 youth at a time, we could do 5 or 6, but we'd still have to add if we wanted one long day. And then, of course, we can eliminate. We can say, no, this year we are bringing back the top 24 scores, or we're going to bring back even the top 30 scores, like maybe either add one additional time slot or interview 5 youth per position. So I'm open to ideas and thoughts about that. It's a great problem to have. It's not even a problem, but I'll say that for lack of a better word. It's awesome that we have to discuss this.
Chairwoman Melissa Caprillion, thank you, Pam. And yeah, definitely let's open the discussion. My first initial thought is absolutely let's not knock anybody out of this process and give them the opportunity to come and interview. And my second thought is because we are going to be doing this by Zoom, there might not be as much of time needed with the transition time too, and even how we sit and conversate. It tends to be a little more open, longer when we're in front of each other, and just to kind of help with nerves and things like that. I think a lot of the students now are comfortable with this platform, and so I have a feeling it might go a little bit, this Zoom process might expedite it. However, we do run into some technical issues too, so just in case. So to keep in mind. So I would say, let's do it all in one day. The problem with having it in 2 days is the exact same supervisors who can make the first interview process have to be part of the second one and exclude any of those from the whole process altogether if they can't make both dates. So that's a concern of mine. So it's not always that we have all of our committee together. So I do open if anyone else has any contribution to this conversation.
Chairman Caprillion, I echo what you say. I think that if we are going to have these interviews, and I think that there should be the same people there so that there's no, I mean, these kids, yeah, so I agree. One day, let's get it done, whether it takes a little longer or not. I think it's fair, in my opinion, that it's all the same people that are making that decision.
Thank you for that, Supervisor Cruz. And am I accurate in saying, Supervisor Meyer, is it just you and I who've gone through this process before that's on the committee right now? Or am I missing someone else who has this experience? Or is it just you and I?
No, Madam Chair, I think it is just you and I have been through this the longest, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a great experience, and I'm sure Supervisor Meyer will agree with me there. So I would really hope that our whole committee can make it. So I would like to, I hope we can all agree just having that one day, and maybe by adding the 5 students instead of the 4. So what are we looking at for timing? I'm sorry, I wasn't doing the math. So.
Okay. If we start at a regular 5:30, and especially if we add even one slot, we'll already have 30. So really, we could probably add one more time slot, because I will say in the past too, we've never had all of the youth come back, meaning just some inevitably seem to drop out. Now, that doesn't mean that won't happen this year, and if not, I'll make it work. So I really think if we only extended it, either starting at 5 o'clock or having the last interview start at 8:30, I think we will be okay.
Okay.
And I think it's just a preference. Do you want to start at 5, or do you want to have your last one start at 8:30, wrap up at 9, and then we deliberate afterward?
Okay. How does the committee schedule look about starting a meeting at 5 o'clock? Maybe we should start there. Considering this meeting starts at 6, how does one's work schedule look? Okay, good. Supervisor Wish, how does that look for your schedule?
At this point in time, I couldn't tell you. Because my days flex on my days off. If I'm off on that particular day, 5 o'clock is fine. But I can't Zoom from work.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Supervisor Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. For me, it would probably be 6 o'clock if we could do 6 o'clock. I don't know if that's possible. Because I work 10 to 5 every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Youth and Governance, Willow and Sophia.
I'd be available at that time. 5 or 6 works for me.
Okay. Youth and Governance Rep Sophia. I see her hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't able to unmute it, that's why. Anytime works for me. I'm able to be flexible about it, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. And the reason why I find it so important that the youth and governance representatives are present is, and you can chime into Supervisor Meyer, is that the youth really found a lot of comfort in a lot of the questions when those being interviewed are asked, do they have any questions for us? It's really questions for the youth and governance reps, the majority of the time. So having them present, I feel, is really vital. So I'm glad that those times are open for both of you. Supervisor Smetana, how's your schedule look?
It worked. That works. Anytime works for me.
Okay. So where do we go from here? So it really was the option of starting at 5 o'clock or elongating.
Right, we'd either start at 5 and our last interview would still begin at 8. So we'd be done at 8:30 and then deliberate. Or, because typically we start at 5:30, or we can still start at 5:30 and add on to the back end. If we were to go and first start at 6, which we can, but just know that that means the last set of interviews would begin at 9. So we wouldn't even get to 6 deliberating till 9:30.
So maybe I will, and I'll call upon you next, Supervisor Maldonado. I think having a 5:30 start time, I too, like Supervisor Maldonado, that I have an end time at work too, and sometimes it's really hard to shift my schedule. Did you want to add something, Supervisor Maldonado?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I would say y'all can start without me. Worst case scenario, I'll try to ask off to see if I can get off at 5. I think I could be somewhat flexible, but if I can't, if it's okay, I'll just show up, maybe like 30 minutes late. That way nobody has to come in at 9 o'clock.
Supervisor Maldonado, thank you. Chairwoman Caprillion speaking. The only problem with that is having that fair process that you are scoring every individual. So we would want you there from the beginning to the end. So let me just, if I can make somewhat of an executive decision, but if I see some head nods, I'll easily back down. But I will say, let's have a 5:30 start time. And then what we're going to end up seeing is once Pam puts that out there, we might see some youth drop off. They can't make that day or whatever it may be. And we might not have to go that deep into the evening. So, which is we've seen it before. So, yeah. Okay.
Can you, Chairman, can you remind me of the actual date to start at 5:30 so I can put that in?
Yes, that was February 23rd, was it? What? 24th.
Yep.
Thank you.
24th.
Okay, thank you so much.
So it's a Wednesday.
It is.
And we don't normally meet on Wednesdays. I apologize for these questions because I am new to this. So this will be a Wednesday, February 24th.
Yes. And for some reason, historically, we've done Wednesdays, and I think it's just that was when we were meeting face to face. That was a day that typically was available at Ives. So we typically do a Wednesday, and then if we need to, the following Tuesday. So that's a great question because you're right. It's not a normal meeting day.
Okay. Thank you.
So I would like to pose one other conversation piece. And I'm hoping that my committee will find my reasoning. We present the youth and governance with questions. And we rate them on how they answer these questions, kind of like what Pam just showed on the screen. There's a scorecard. It'll be something very similar. Each of us supervisors will have an opportunity to ask a question, but then the youth are being scored. I find it in today's time, because some of these questions I find a little unfriendly, a little unkind, in a sense where it's unfair not having them to prepare. I would like to pose that these youth get these questions ahead of time. And then it's a all across, open. Some of the questions are, what do you know about Racine County government? So a question, something like that. And I will tell you, very well educated people, I would ask that question, who are adults, who will have no idea how to answer that. But what it will gauge, if all these youth get this a question ahead of time, it will gauge how much did each individual prepare beforehand. Instead, what happens, the nervous youth is the first one will answer and hope to goodness that youth knows something, because each one will tag off of what they say each time. And it's kind of funny because they may be way off the mark, like something talking about school board, and then each one answer and put school board something in there, right? So I just feel with the way times are that allowing them to prepare, and it'll help us better gauge how, their answers are, because I have a hard time scoring them, because I feel individuality, we all shouldn't be the same across the board. And, but it tells about preparation. And so I don't know if anyone else has any comments, or just because you haven't been part of that process, maybe you don't know what to add, but I'd be curious of what Supervisor Meyer thinks of that, and everyone else.
Thank you, Madam. I got, well, two thoughts of, it kind of takes away from some of the interview process for having them think on their feet. And
I'm sorry, I don't hear Supervisor Meyer. Do you? Okay,
You're
nope,
not.
you went mute on us.
Uh-oh.
Okay, oh, I heard the uh-oh, but that's about it. All we heard, Supervisor Meyer, is that your first thought was it takes the having them answer on their feet. It takes that piece away. That's all we heard.
Well, I will say in the meantime, until Supervisor Meyer gets on track here, is as many of you know, I was just appointed, so I had to do the interview process. So probably very similar to how these youth in government are feeling. And although I did my research, I also didn't know the exact questions. So I would say, in my opinion, going through that, not everybody's going to be obviously elected. But not only did I do my research and know that I wanted, was interested in it, it gave me a chance to think about my responses wholeheartedly, and really think about how I felt about things, rather than giving the response that was probably the right response or so I did not get questions in advance for this appointee for the, but in my opinion, I do think that those questions, these kids can then formulate their own real opinions about things and really think about them, rather than giving the cookie cutter response. That's my opinion. Because it's a stressful, it's already a very stressful moment that you're going through. But I felt confident knowing that I was giving answers that I researched, and I was answering the way that I really wanted to. So if you had those questions ahead of time, and you can say, I really want to look up this and figure out how do I actually feel about that, and have I looked that up. To me, that makes you a better candidate than just giving a cookie cutter response. But I'll give that back to Supervisor Meyer. So now that you're back, sorry.
Thank you, Supervisor Chris. Okay. Supervisor Meyer?
No, thank you. Just a couple of things that I was just going to recap on was the same scenario, just like with the job interview. You don't know the questions that are going to be asked, so you need to think on your feet. and you need to.
We lost you again, right when you want to make that point. We're holding on at the edge of our seat.
Try something different here.
Are you there with us? Okay. It's like when you're watching that movie, it always goes to that same point and just freezes and you can't get past it. We're at the same thing. Vice Supervisor Meyer, while you're still working that, I see that Youth and Governance Representative Sophia Sandoval has her hand up. I would like to recognize you, please.
I would say I'm probably reasoning again with Supervisor Meyer. I know that when I got interviewed for the Youth and Governance, that I liked that thrill of knowing that I didn't know the questions and that I was going to have to think about it as soon as the question was asked. And I did see a bit of piggyback riding when someone was asked the question and then we'd all follow after. But it is part of the interview process. And I believe that taking that away from the interview process, it just allows the youth and governance candidates to just think ahead, and they're not really giving you an answer that probably that they want to say. It's probably just what you want to hear.
Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate that. This is Chairwoman Caprillion. I'm going to try back to Supervisor Meyer. And, oh, he's kind of glitching on us. So while he's still trying, I still see he's muted. Supervisor Maldonado, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I don't know. I'm going to agree with you, Chairwoman. I had an interview over 300 people in my other job, full-time gig for a campaign, and I ended up giving folks the questions before they went to the interview because it definitely made the interview process a lot easier for not only for myself, but it made them more relaxed. I feel that a lot of people get really nervous at interviews and they freeze up or they choke up. And I know it's like Sophia stated, it makes some people like the thrill of being interviewed. I personally never really, was not a big fan of it. But when I gave folks the answer, it definitely we definitely had I had a more robust and vibrant conversation and answers. And I just felt like it was a lot smoother. And then I could tell which people were more prepared, had more in-depth answers. Yeah, I don't know. I personally think that we should send it out. I think it makes it easier and have more robust conversations. Because I feel like if you're like kind of like on the spot or thinking on your feet, you get nervous and not everything comes out. But again, that's just my opinion. I'll go with whatever everybody else wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Maldonado. Supervisor Meyer, you're on deck again.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. Just kind of recapping before about my thoughts in regards to like if you're going for a job interview and thinking on your feet. Sometimes that gives you a better, look at a candidate as far as how they're going to adapt to a pressure situation. Again, on the flip side of the coin, some people don't adapt well with being put on a hot seat, and then they kind of clam up, and then it's really not fair to them either. So I'm kind of torn, to be perfectly honest with you, on both scenarios. But I'll go with what the group wants to do. I mean, either way, we can kind of, we can try something new, we can try something different. If that's the committees, that's what they want to do, I'll roll with whichever way we go. So.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Meyer. Supervisor Smetana, please.
Thank you. So in the past, how did this process work? They didn't have the questions, am I right?
No.
Okay. So how did the process work? Did it go smoothly, or did it are you just trying to cut time here?
No.
Or?
I'm not trying to cut time. I appreciate the question. So I guess smoothly is subjective. For them, probably not. Sometimes they would file into the room. Each of us supervisors ahead of time had a question, so we knew we would kind of go down the line or in a certain order, and then pick a youth to answer the question. Before us was a panel of 4 youth, and then there was us supervisors. So they got to hear the answer of the youth that spoke before and so on and so forth. And the youth sometimes were very klutzy in the process of answering these sometimes. So for example, the question that always comes to mind is, are you familiar with, or what are you familiar with Racine County Services? Or something like, and they're like, sometimes there's, I'm absolutely nothing. I'm not, I don't know anything about it. So on a scorecard, then some of the supervisor would score it a 0 because they don't know Racine County Services. So I don't know if I knew all Racine County Services before I started, right? So this would allow them, my thoughts are, if you give them that question ahead of time, let's see how much they research. Then we can really base, and then I feel better. I never could give a 0 on that. I thought it was unfair. Is that, maybe Willow researched and just gave you 20 services, and then one person, well, I know there's the sheriff's department, so then I feel like I can better gauge their answer and more fairly give them an appropriate score to their research. So does that help a little bit? Okay. Okay. I recognize Willow.
Thank you. So I remember that I was asked a question about the services that Racine County provides. I had no idea what I wanted to say, and I did kind of just make something up. And for some people, that's kind of hard. And with my experience so far in youth and governance, it's really been all about the preparation, preparing for meetings. So if you get sent like a file or like what the meeting is going to be about, kind of taking notes and having your documents ready and everything like that, it's been all about the preparation for me. So I think that having a list of questions and giving it to the youth would really be able to show how well of a youth and governance member they would be, rather than having them think of questions on the fly. Because for me, that's not really what it's been about. I've had time to prepare and, think about what I wanted to say. And I think that that would help us better judge who'd be a perfect youth and governance fit.
Thank you for your contribution, Willow. And I think you speak to the nature of what we're interviewing them for, right? What type of position? Supervisor Wish, I see your hand up. Thank you, Willow.
Yeah, thanks. I'm probably the oldest guy in this group. I've been around. I've probably done more interviewing than probably a bunch of you combined over the course of 40 some odd years in retail. I think it's all, if this is about a learning experience, I think they need not to be prepped and ahead of time. If they want to, these are all high school students basically. I know I probably would have benefited if somebody would have given me questions ahead of time. That's never happened in my life. I think it would be a better learning experience, not only for the committee, but also for the individual, the students individually, to know what it's like to go into an interview process. That's just my feelings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Wish. I am going to put Pam on the spot right now. Pam, would you so happen to have the list of questions that we ask the youth?
It'll take me a moment to find them, but I will find them. And I noticed that another supervisor, that Supervisor Cruz, had her hand up. So maybe while she comments, I can search.
Okay, Supervisor Cruz, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Oh, okay, please.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I just want to say also that I believe that it's probably the best learning experience ever, that when you're interviewing for a job, that you do the research on your own prior to the interview without questions being asked, so that you know what you're getting into. The fact that to just, in my opinion, especially when it comes to government, at least understand, do couple hours of research and understand what you're wanting to get into rather than a cookie cutter approach. So that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you, Supervisor Cruz. The one thing I will just add, so county supervisors have been around for a really long time. So to be able to research Racine County supervisors and what our roles is a lot more easier than trying to figure out what a youth and governance rep would do. And so, just keep that in mind and what their role is compared to what our role is. It's completely different, right? And they're just really taking part of a committee. That's what they're doing. And their role is really to look at our agenda, work with their mentor, and just trying to understand some of the things that come up on that committee in particular. And so as a suggestion that just came across to me was, if we look at the question, what about maybe some of the questions, preparing them ahead of time on, and then some let them answer on the fly. So that's why I was gonna see if Pam had accessible to her those questions. Okay, she does. Okay, you got the floor, Pam.
Yes, thanks. I will share again. All right. Are you able to see them?
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So you can see there's 6 of them. Really, there's 7 because I believe, because 2 is really 2 questions. It's tell us about one of your activities and how it could relate to one of the committees. And then there's the follow-up question. That really is just, are you able to make meetings that start as early as 6 or 7? And then you can see how the rating goes as well at the bottom. But
yes.
So 1 to 10.
So I will say, just for my being on this committee for as long as I have, what trips the youth up is number 3. They never remember what committee that they selected. It trips them up every time. And then tell us what you know about any of the services offered by Racine County. So those 2 are definitely questions that totally trip the students up every single time. And I don't think there's ever any exception, except the youth that has come back for the second term, right? So not preparing them for number 1, for number 2, I think that's fine. Number 5, that's fine. And so I really think maybe preparing them for question 3 and 4, would that satisfy this committee by doing this half and half?
I like that idea.
Was that you, Willow?
Yes, I really like that idea. I know that the questions were probably the hardest that I had to answer, and just because I think out sheet of I think we had to choose a top 3 for the government. I can't even think of
for the committees.
Yeah. Yes, I just didn't remember at the time, so I think that's good.
Yes, the youth usually don't remember quite the name of the committee and actually what it does. So, or to the extent would give them some time to really look into that too, and then to recall it, because there is a gap when they actually filled out the application, then when they come before us. So, and they don't have their paperwork in front of them. They usually come with just them. I mean, I know we're going to be by Zoom. So do we have any thoughts on that proposal? I don't see no hands up. You can always unmute yourself too, because when we're sharing the screen, it's sometimes hard to see if a hand is up. Would we be okay with that? Can I kind of get a sense of the room? I see Fabi with a thumbs up. Kelly's nodding her head, thumbs up. Scott, Smetana, Wish, how do you feel about that? Is that a good compromise? Oh, no. Oh, come on. Oh, okay. Well, we got 1. We get thumbs up. Okay. And did we lose Sophia? Is she still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, so Sophia, what's your thoughts on keeping the other ones where they don't know and just preparing them for those other 2 questions?
Well,
We know you like the thrill, Sophia.
Yeah, even when I get interviewed for jobs and all of that, like Supervisor Wish said, that it's just the process of the interview, and it gives them an experience that they're not used to. Maybe if they haven't worked at all, this is a good experience of how to know what to say on the spot rather than prepare yourself. But I will compromise.
Thank you, Sophia. No, much appreciated on that. And we do have those other questions that really are very personal that they're not sure that, they're going to be asked. So, okay, this is not on the agenda for a voting, even though we do have just the updates from Pam. Oh, I saw a hand go up and then down. I don't know if that was by mistake or not.
It was me.
Okay.
Just a comment. The question about why did you choose the committee you did? Can't you incorporate the committee that they signed up for into that question? Then it eliminates that as having to prepare for it.
We have done that where we'll remind the youth what they picked. We tell them what their first three options are. We'll remind them and they'll make up something. It's usually something they're like, oh, parks. Okay, because I like parks, or something really off ball. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable for us to sit and hear their answers sometimes. Or some of those who are on health and human services, maybe because they have they're looking to get into the health field. So you get a couple of those answers, but I would say the very high majority just bomb that one. And like Willow, who can just speak on the spot, just to let you know, those who do sometimes, like when we ask, what do you know about Racine County Services? And then you start talking about the Racine Police Department, that's like a 0 score because we're the sheriff's department, right? So even though you're quick like that, we know you're just making it up. So, all right. Well, I am just with the nods. I think I will, Pam, is that an issue to be able to give the youth those 2 questions ahead of time to know?
No, it won't, because what happens is on February 5th, they get a letter. And I don't know if you've had a chance yet, Chairwoman Caprellian, to look at it, but they get the letter and it just says that we're doing everything via Zoom. But with that letter, because that I do as an attachment, I explain, I also give them written text. So what I can do is in that email say, here are 2 questions that you can prepare for in advance. However, please know that you will be asked additional questions that you can prepare for. I would give them the heads up. It's definitely doable. And that's what we can do. And it would also show if they read the email completely as well and looked at the questions, because as we know, sometimes people just scan emails or skim them and they don't always read them in depth. So, because I would not put those questions in the letter. It would be in the email. Just like they're going to know in the email that they will be put into a waiting room and they will not be admitted into the main room until it's their time, like when we've finished with the other group. So that way we don't have to worry about people coming in and joining our meeting already in progress. They will wait in a waiting room until I let them in.
Thank you so much, Pam. Much appreciated. And I think, and just for the sake of saying it, just because I've been through this process, I just really thank you. It will make my scoring so much easier, because that is just a very difficult thing, because like, how can I mark them for not knowing that, we have a certain service. Supervisor Wish, were you trying to talk? I didn't know. Okay, just saw some movement a little bit. All right, I think we had the majority. We hear ya, Sophia. We hear you, Supervisor Wish, but I think the majority is ruling on this one. And let's just see how this process goes. And maybe that we'll find that we have to either go back or go back to the way we were doing it, or change it again the next go round. If that's okay? Okay, very good. Well, thank you all for entertaining that. And the next that we have on the agenda is just our communications and referrals from the county board. These are communications and referrals as for the sake of Supervisor Cruz. These come in from other counties, and these are receive and filed or for information. If something stands out to you and you think it's something that you would like to see Racine County get involved in, it is then for you just to take a note of it, bring it before you can speak to corporate counsel or something like that. We'd have to draw up our own resolution. Or if it's something that we wanted to support another county, there is a process for that as well. So this is really just a point of information. I will, just because we are on this format, I'll just read them all quickly, and unless we're going to pull any out, we can just group them all together in one motion. So the first one is resolution number 2021-089 out of Eau Claire County in support of the pending legislation to amend the hearing timeframes for juveniles taken into custody under Wisconsin statute chapters 938 to coincide with hearing timelines for children taken into custody under Wisconsin statute chapter 48. Letter B, resolution 5312-2020, Jackson County, request to review funding for adult protective services and increase long-term care placement locations within Wisconsin. C, resolution 5412-2020, Jackson County, resolution in support of the state funding for equitable return to utility tax collections to counties and municipalities as utility aid. D, resolution 2020-1201, Trempealeau County requesting the Wisconsin State Legislature to convene in a special session to provide COVID-19 direction for state of Wisconsin. So with all those referrals, do we have a motion?
Supervisor Maldonado, motion to receive and file.
Again, Supervisor Wish.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Maldonado and Wish. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye, including youth and governance.
Aye.
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 Okay, was that you too, Sophia?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And there was no nays, so the motion passes. And with that, the last thing on the agenda is adjournment. So just a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Supervisor Wish.
Thank you, Supervisor Wish. Do we have a second?
Second, Supervisor Maldonado.
All right, we've done it, guys. Congratulations on your first government services meeting. Supervisor Cruz, it was nice having you. Thank you for contributing. And we are adjourned at 6:47.
Right.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Willow, for taking part. Thank you, guys. Have a
Take
good
care, y'all.
evening. All right, bye now.
Good
Good night.
everyone.
Good night.